So I recently did a video on limerence and affairs, and I got a lot of questions. So one of the biggest questions that I got is, how do I get out of limerence? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Leslie Wells, connection coach here. I help individuals build, thrive, heal, repair their relationships, and I do that by looking at things through an attachment lens. And so a lot of the clients that come to me, a lot of my coaching clients happen to be people who have experienced betrayal in their marriages or their relationships, and a lot of what I do is help them repair, but we also go back and look at things through an attachment lens so we can get true change in pattern behaviors and true understanding of our why, so that we can actually move forward with a true understanding of how we got in those positions and how to heal moving forward. It's super crucial, as far as I'm concerned, to making sure that it never happens again in a relationship. If you haven't seen the TikTok on limerence, I will go ahead and add that in the bio or the description, so that you can go ahead and look at that first if you need to. But basically, limerence is something that happens in a lot of affairs. And so 87%, it's around 87% of people in an affair have no intention of leaving their partner, and they still claim that they are in love with their partner. And so limerence is extremely different than love. Love is not self-serving. It tends to show up more selflessly. You show up in action, and love puts the well-being of someone else above yourself, or considers the well-being of someone else, and you truly care for that person and their well-being, what makes them feel good, what doesn't, all of those sort of things. Limerence is a very self-serving obsession, and this is a psychological term. It's published in many psychology journals and articles, but it is a very obsessive, ruminating type of feeling, and you're not interested so much in the other person, but it's the high that you get from that other person, the way that they make you feel. And so instead of caring about their well-being, it's more about taking what you can from them to get that feeling that makes you feel good. And it's very consumeristic, right? You're taking from them, you're not necessarily even interested in that person. So the person who is in limerence is unable to see the flaws in this person. They have taken all of their desires and needs and what they feel like they need to fulfill their cup, and they have projected it onto this other person, thinking this other person is going to give them all the things that they need to make themselves complete. It is very much a delusion, but again, it can actually impair like daily functioning, and it can make them do behaviors that they would not normally do. This is why we see people that are in limerence and affairs that are risking their family, their children, their jobs, their businesses, their marriage, all of these things, because it's obsessive and it's very, very unhealthy, and it literally interferes with the way that they would normally behave. So the only things that I can tell you is that there's not really like just a cure for limerence. So there are things that you can do, and a lot of these things really are just on true awareness, and it's taking your thoughts when you're in it and holding them up to what is true. That's a huge part of being able to get through this, is actually like being aware. So one of the first things to be aware of is that this is a delusion. It is not true reality. And so you need to be aware that you are taking from this person. So one of the things that you can sit back and ask yourself is like, what ways do I want to give to them, and why? What are my motivations for doing that? Do I want to pour into this relationship because of how it makes me feel, because of the dopamine hits that I am getting? Or do I truly care about this person? Do I even know this person? Because a lot of times in an affair, it's very superficial. You don't really know this person. If you don't know someone's flaws, how they show up in conflict, their truest needs, deepest, darkest desires and fears and all that, then it's not really a true vulnerable relationship. It's more of a situationship or something that's superficial. So that's something that you can ask yourself. But again, it's going back to really understanding reality versus delusion. And so one of the things that's a reality is, if you are in a limerence situation, or you're in an affair situation, not necessarily limerence, but if you're in an affair, you are not in touch with someone who is emotionally available. If you are in a marriage and therefore you are not truly 100% available for a true, healthy, productive relationship without being in bondage to another person and a marital institution, then that person is not emotionally available, and neither are you. For both people to be emotionally available, you have to be free of another relationship, and you have to be fully transparent and honest. And if you're lying to your partner, if you're living in secrecy and you're meeting up with someone and you can't share that openly, you are not living in transparency and vulnerability and all of the things that go into a securely attached relationship. So securely attached people very much find people that are emotionally available. If you find yourself in a situation with an affair partner and therefore they are not emotionally available, if they're seeking out someone who is not free to be with them, they are not emotionally available, and more than likely you are not either, or you're not. You're basically not. If you're in a marriage, you're not emotionally available to someone else. And so that's the reality. The other thing is to really look at your attachment wounds. So most people that are in affairs or limerence are very much distracting and avoiding. And so we need to look at our attachment wounds, our attachment styles, what's going on in the relationship, what's going on with us, what core needs of ours are not being met, or what core wounds are we trying to fix or repair or run from by running into this situation with an affair partner and being in limerence. And so a lot of the times it's external validation. Again, you're taking from that person often to build yourself up, to give yourself worthiness, to feel worthy, to feel valuable, to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel like you are adequate and you're successful in relationships. And so those are all things that we're taking, right, instead of finding inward. And so being able to look and see where we're deficient inward will very much lead us to the realities of why we're seeking out this partner. And then we can begin the work there instead of by numbing and distracting in this relationship. The other thing that I would suggest is finding healthy ways to get your dopamine hits. And so people that are in limerence are getting their dopamine hits from the other partner and the way that they're getting their needs filled through this person. And so find healthy ways to get your dopamine hits. The other thing that I would say is that what fires together wires together, meaning that the neurotransmitters that are released during whatever event is happening are things that are going to create neural pathways in your brain. So every time you get that dopamine hit and those feel-good neurotransmitters from this person who you have the limerence with, that is going to create new neural pathways. And so one of the things that you have to do is complete no contact so that those neural pathways can start fading away and sort of dying out, and we need to create new ones. You can create new dopamine hits and new neurotransmitters by doing things that are healthy, whether you run, whether you do spin, whether you reconnect in a real, true relationship where both people are emotionally available, and it's not a situation of what I can get from them, but it's one where you're pouring back into the relationship. You can take those behaviors that you're using to throw into your partner that you're limerent with, and the time that you're spending, the planning that you're doing, the amount of time in your brain that you're obsessing and thinking over this person, and you can transfer that back into a good, healthy relationship. But do it in a way where you're not just doing it for what you can get out of it, but you're transitioning into how you can pour back into your relationship. And a huge key to this is recognizing that you only get those good feelings back in a real way, where it's a real relationship, when you are doing it to pour into the other person and you are not just serving yourself. True relationships means that you care about the well-being of your partner and you care about them and you're pouring back into them. It is reciprocal. So taking what you're doing and throwing into your limerent partner, taking that back and transferring it over to your partner in a way that is reciprocal is something that you can do. That's going to start to shift your feelings towards your partner as well and start to increase your connection, which is a true, good, healthy way of getting those dopamine hits. And that's also going to release oxytocin when you're in a committed relationship with somebody who's emotionally available, you're emotionally available, there's no secrecy, and you're feeling that connection. You also need to recognize that there's no one person that is ever going to complete you and meet all of your needs. You need to start looking at yourself, what your needs are, and ways that you can get them met in healthy ways. What you can put onto the partner that you're supposed to be pouring into, and what you can get in other ways, through support groups, through friendship, whether you have a church, your community, and through yourself, family members, whatever it is. But you need to recognize that this person that you have projected as the person that's going to meet all of your needs, that's not the case. That is false. That is never going to happen. So you need to really be able to understand that delusion. One other thing that you can do to sort of help you is to devalue this person. And I'm not saying this to be unkind, but I'm saying to recognize their true flaws and to actually bring attention to all the things that are wrong. If this person is not respecting the boundaries of your marriage, that says a lot about their character as well as their emotional availability. B, if they are okay being like the backup plan or being a second person and don't need your full priority, something to think about. So really look at this situation, see the reality of it, and start to devalue this person as is appropriate. Again, I'm not saying say awful things about them or attack their character, but there's some things that you're missing about this person. There's some huge red flags that they're missing about you and you're missing about them that need to be examined in depth. Taking them off of that pedestal, you're no longer going to feel the same way about them, and you're not gonna be able to have those blinders on that keep you in limerence. Lastly, I would say full disclosure to the limerent person when you start to recognize the reality. Straight up tell them so that you can have full closure that it was never about them, it was about what you got from them and that you were just taking from them and you were acting as a consumer rather than someone who is actually interested in pouring back into them. That will give you closure, that will probably push them off, that will bring reality to the forefront so that you can actually back away from that relationship. So hopefully that gives you some tools, techniques, and strategies and some ways of changing your perspective that will help you deal with the problem of limerence. Go ahead and tell me what you think in the comments if this has worked for you, if you think it will.